What's up, y'all? Thank you for tuning in to the YouTube channel. It's been a little while since I recorded anything or made a video. So I just want to thank you for being patient with me. I know everybody's getting a little stir crazy with the pandemic going on. Or even so, I just want to thank you for coming to the Lighthouse YouTube channel. Take a quick minute to talk about Matthew chapter 13 verse 24 through 30, and then the explanation is in 36 through 43. Excuse me. So we're just going to get right in it. Jesus is giving a parable. He said, the kingdom of the heavens is similar to a man sowing good seeds in the field. But when he slept, an enemy comes in and sows weeds in between the wheat, and he left. But when the grass sprouted and made fruit, the weeds became visible. Sir, didn't you plant good seeds in your field? So how do you have weeds? An enemy has done this. Do you want us to collect it? No. You might accidentally uproot the wheat together with them. Let it grow until the harvest. Then I'll tell the reapers, first collect the weeds and bind it into bundles and to be burned. Then gather the wheat together in my barn. Now, I could be wrong, but I doubt that I have any farmers under the sound of my voice. Even so, I say that because a farmer can relate to crop seasons, when to plant, where to plant, what type of fertilizer to use, how much, different things like that would affect the yield of a fruit, of a harvest, of a planting. Even so, anyone can understand doing something good, and when you're not looking, an antagonist coming in and planting seeds of discord in the midst of it. Now, obviously, the first response is to confront the one who did it. I won't lie, that's been my first thought. In this situation, they didn't know who did it, and they asked the landowner, "Didn't you plant good seed? Which seeds yielded these weeds? Did you buy bad seed at the market? Weren't you able to judge good seed from bad seed before you bought it? Why weren't we able to judge good seed from bad seed as we planted?" The last three are all of these are kind of follow-ups that I've gleaned, but even so, his answer, 5 simple words. An enemy has done this. Now, he says this because he knew and trusted his merchants to sift through the seeds and not waste money. He trusted his tillers to break ground and set the rows. He trusted the planters to lay out the seeds in rows and columns. And so when they ask him if they want him to, as he wants them to gather it, it's pretty easy for him to say no, because at this point, the grass and the wheat all grow up and they look very similar. It's very difficult to distinguish. At this point, I want to take a moment to explain that the Greek word for grain is sitou. S-I-T-O-U. Sitou is translated into English as grain. Kortos is the Greek word is translated into grass or hay. Kortos, the Greek chi is a ch, but it can be pronounced like a k. So you may as well just say it's Kortos. Kortos. It's pronounced as kortos. It translates into hay or grass. So the question is, how do we distinguish grain from grass? Are those designated as reapers have special training? Or is it something that just becomes more obvious in time and more easily discernible? I think this is part of why Jesus says, "Do not condemn," in Matthew 7, verse 1 through 5. Most people recognize the fact that he's done in this passage where he says, "Don't judge in order that you won't be judged." But I want to go a little farther to explain. Don't judge, don't condemn, in order that you might not be condemned. Specifically, with the ruler you measure out to others, it should be measured back to you. So why do you see the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, but not contemplate the 2x4 in your own eye? Or by what right do you ask your brother to sit still so you can cast a speck out of his eye, but all the while ignore the 2x4 or the plank that's in your own eye? Hypocrite, first cast the beam out of your own eye, then you can see clearly to cast the speck out of your brother's eye. So, just to kind of get into the passage, Jesus is the planter. We are the seeds that he's planted. We are not harvesters. We are not the ones who reap the grain. We are not the ones who bring this. We are not the ones who inspect it. It's very easily to. It's easy to say this, and it's very hard in practicality, because there are people with very sins, that we want to justify, or we want to condemn, depending on where you stand on various spectrums. I'm pretty sure this passage, I can't remember where it says, beware to those who call good evil and evil good. I think excuse me, I think that's something we have to be very careful of. Especially in today's society. Now, there's a lot of things that aren't exactly right or righteous, and we understandably can, not agree with it. More specifically, issue of homosexuality and gender fluidity. This is something that's very tedious. Certain lifestyles are not what God designed it to be. They are, they are, to say that's not what God intended. And of course we respect people's freedoms. We want people, to feel free to do what it is they do. And we're never really getting into the fact that, some things are of God, some things are not. We have to deny the flesh. I know we have impulses and we feel compelled to do various things, but whether it's homosexuality, whether it's drinking excess, whether it's letting your anger take control of a situation, whatever the case might be, you have to pray for wisdom and discernment. Not just to say, not just not to justify yourself, but to figure out what exactly is the best course of action in a given situation. And so this is kind of the internal battle that we have as far as judging, condemning, measuring, trying to understand our role among other people. All this gets very confusing. And also his original audience needed a detailed explanation. So he goes into that in verses 36 through 43. So after the crowds left, he came into the house, and his disciples approached him. They said, finish telling us about the parable of the weeds of the field. The weeds of the field. So in response to this, he says, the one sowing good seed is the Son of Man. He's talking about himself. The field is the world, and the good seeds, the sons and daughters of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one. So the enemy is the tempter, but the harvest is at the end of the age, and the workers are the angels. So therefore, just as the weeds are gathered and burned by the fire here, in the same manner it shall be at the end of the age. The Son of Man shall send his angels. They shall, they shall collect out from his kingdom, from all the stumbling blocks and the workers of lawlessness, and they shall throw them into the furnace of fire. It should be weeping and gnashing of teeth, grinding of teeth. And then the righteous shall shine out as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. The one who adds ears to hear, let him hear. So let's just kind of backstep and break this down a little bit. Jesus is the one planting good seeds all over the world. Satan, the devil, the accuser, the tempter, he has a lot of names, but it's his job to sow discord all over the world. It's his very goal and task is to destroy the relationship we have with the Father. Jesus tells us this in John chapter 10, verse 10. He says the enemy only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So we gotta understand that Satan's attacks aren't always blatant and overt and obvious. He's much more cunning. And you may as well get rid of the mental image of the red horns and pitchfork. That's disillusion. More specifically, more honestly, he's like a shapeshifter, and he knows enough about human nature, and he knows enough about Scripture to keep us anxious. Excuse me. As I stated before, it's his purpose, his goal, his mission to separate us from the Father. Also, bear in mind the very word Satan means accuser. Relevance: we are all grass and grain. We all look very similar to each other until and even after full development. We must not see ourselves as harvesters until he appoints us as harvesters, until he sends his angels, his messengers, to separate out the wheat from the grass. So this is a shout out to make sure, it's a call to accountability, that you won't be a stumbling block to other people, but also you won't bring about lawlessness. Because either way, if you're dragging people down, it's going to be obvious. If you're a stumbling block or you're causing lawlessness, there will be retribution. And likewise, if you're doing the best you can to let your light shine, and you're not being a stumbling block, but you're bringing solid wisdom to people, spiritual encouragement to people, that's going to be obvious also. The angels have an easier time to see this and explain this and understand this than we do. So we have to be careful that we don't overstep our bounds. And so just reading this makes me think of, let's see 1 second. Oh yeah, so yeah, seeing all this makes me think of Matthew chapter 9 verses 36 through most of chapter 10, where Jesus sends out his 12 apostles 2 by 2, and he says, he says the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. And so at that point, that's when he sends his messengers out into the field to reap the harvest. That's Matthew 9:37. Read all the way through chapter 10, and you'll understand his methodology and what he tells them to do, and how exactly he tells them to do the harvest. I think a lot of times we don't really pay attention to that, and I think that's another reason why he said to not judge, to not look at things to your own understanding, but let him give you a wisdom and discernment to do things in the right order. Because he does have very specific instructions. It's about us doing things the right way and being the right example. He doesn't want us to take a whole lot of extra stuff. Like you read in Matthew chapter 10, he talks about don't have extra shoes and extra clothes, and don't take all kind of money in your belt pockets and your little belt clips. And so basically what he's saying is you have to work for what you want. You have to work for what you eat. Old phrase from where I'm from, until you got to earn your keep. Um, you can't just be a freeloader, you know, in the kingdom. You make God look bad, and you make yourself of you kill your witness when you're a freeloader. You know, it's hard for people to trust you and in turn trust God if you're a lazy freeloader who won't put in work and earn your keep and earn your space, your living space. But then so he has specific rules to first go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And then later on, with his wisdom and discernment and his counsel and commission, later on he can send this to others. But you have to find your niche, find your section of the field where he wants you to harvest. And 1 second. Oh yeah, and so one way we can discern that, one way we can see that, is to look at verse 10, 13 through 15. And yes, this does kind of sound like judgment, but it's not judgment, it's discernment. And I want to take a minute to talk about that, because discernment is distinguishing one thing from another. Excuse me, that's discernment. Condemnation is to jump the gun far behind and say that somebody is deserving of heaven or hell. That is something that we can do once we're led by the Spirit. We can't just of our own volition start casting people into hell, because that's not our place to do it. He tells, he has trained his harvesters to gather the wheat in the barns and bundle up the grass. So those are ones he sent out. Read Matthew chapter 10. You'll see that he gives us specific instructions as to how to discern, who's wheat and who's grass. He says, if the house is worthy, let your peace be on it. But if it's not worthy, let your peace return back to you. And whoever receives and hears your words, they shall be one as a brother. They shall be brought into the kingdom. But if they won't hear what you have to say, if they rebuke you with your words, and they push you off to the side, make you feel like you don't matter, then you just, okay, you're not going to force it. Don't force it. Don't try to make anybody understand or receive something they refuse to accept. Just teach them the word. Let the Spirit lead you. And if they don't accept it, move on. Verse 14 says, shake the dust off your feet. Shake the dust off. Just let it go. Don't hold a grudge. Don't come at them with anger or pettiness. Say what you need to say. If they accept it, cool. If not, breathe, stretch, shake, let it go. And so, going on into that passage, verse 15, he says, it'll be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah in that day than those who won't listen to the gospel that the kingdom is near. And so that's definitely something we need to look out for, is making sure our ears are open, making sure our hearts and our minds are open to what God has to say to us and through us to other people, and make sure that we're not a stumbling block to other people. In one way or another, we all have some sins to battle, some battles to fight, but we have to pray for wisdom first and foremost. Second of all, make sure you link up with the people he puts in your life to help you bring out the best in you, because that's how we're going to help each other get into his kingdom. And that's how we're going to help each other stay accountable in his kingdom and fellowship with one another in his kingdom. But again, I just say, that's my challenge. What I would challenge you and myself to do is be more mindful of his kingdom and our place in the kingdom. I understand we have, we have dual citizenship, and we do have to be mindful of that dual citizenship. Because excuse me, later on in chapter 10, Jesus talks about how they called him, a demon. They tried to rebuke him or cast him down, mock him, spit in his face, so to speak. So we have to expect that same type of animosity to come against us, because yes, we have dual citizenship, and the king of this earth age knows he's not worthy to enter in the Father's kingdom to come. So with that being said, he tries to destroy us. He tries to pull us out of God's hand. And of course, God's not going to let us go easily. However, just like I was saying about not forcing the word on people, God's not going to force his will on us. And so we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful of excuse me. We have to be mindful of the who we're giving our time and our effort and our energy into. And we also have to remember, like I said, we have dual citizenship. So we got to understand that this world is not going to accept us and let us change the status quo of this life. Because if we're buying into this world system, then we won't be able to appreciate God's coming kingdom, because we're so caught up in this. And he'll give us what we need. He'll give us even some of the desires of our heart. But we got to make sure we don't hold these things as idols, because these things, the enemy can use these things to distract us. The enemy can use these things to get our focus off of what he has for us. And in this, we forfeit being grain, and we become as grass, because we have no weight to us, and we're blown away when the wind blows, when the heat comes. And so my challenge to you is just make sure you stay grounded in the Lord. Stay connected to his people. Pray for wisdom, pray for discernment, pray for courage. Pray that you can be a light and example to other people. And not only that, but pray that you will have the relationship with God, so that you won't later on feel empty and burnt out. Because if you're spending so much of your time, effort, energy, giving so much of yourself to other people without having a relationship with God yourself, you're going to burn out. You're going to be empty. I mean, it's like, think about it. If you have a little bit of money and you give it all away to the point where you have nothing left, it's kind of like self-destruction, right? So with that being said, it's like, be in fellowship with God. Be in fellowship with one another. But at the same time, like I said, don't give so much of yourself to other people that you have no depth, and ultimately you burn yourself out, and you become as grass. Because that's self-sacrificing the wrong way. And we have to excuse me, of course we have to be self-sacrificial, but it have to be wise with it. We have to pray that the Lord not only will give us what we need and the desires of our heart, but he would help us have the wisdom to maintain it in a way that's beneficial to ourselves, to him, to his kingdom, to our siblings in his kingdom, and to help us keep moving forward to win other people. Because as the seeds, as the grain, we are the fruit. We bear the fruit that feeds the kingdom. We are the fruit that feeds the sheep in his kingdom. And as we feed the sheep in his kingdom, we put them in better position to realize and recognize where they are and who they are in him. And so I'm just going to leave you that to think about. And pray that this was a blessing to you. Hopefully it sparks something within you that makes you want to refine your relationship with Christ and with others a little bit more. And take time to examine things for yourself, and take time to relax, but don't become slothful. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you for your time. Love you. God bless you. Peace. Thanks again for stopping by the YouTube channel. Hopefully have more content on a more consistent basis coming soon. Y'all be safe out here. Be careful with this coronavirus. You know, don't be fearful, but don't be ridiculous. Be, be wise and be vigilant. Keep yourself and your loved ones safe. Be blessed.